Millennials, millennial leaders. It's all the rage there, out there, all in social media today. Today, we're going to uncover what is really influencing businesses out there today with an actual millennial leader, Brian. Hello, Brian. And we're going to dive into some topics to understand how millennial leaders are changing business today. So join us now as we get started on the GCW. You like that? GCW? I totally shortchanged it.
Love that. Love that. Branding, live branding.
I know. All right. So today we're going to tap into how millennial leaders are changing the way of business. Those of you that are catching us on our platforms, obviously LinkedIn is our main platform, but we're also streaming live on YouTube and our Facebook. So let's get started. Let's get this party started about millennials. So let's tap into Brian. So Brian, you are a development manager, a millennial leader of teams.
Yep.
And so you know firsthand about the organization that you're in and working in that system and how you see even the people that you lead of what kind of leader you want to be, right? And probably through the years, since you and I have known each other for years, right, of how the environments that you were in can help you thrive better. And there's some cool things that are happening at your company that Roxana and myself and have chat about, and we'd love to also get a catch of that soon here. So a lot of goodies today. So we're going to jump into our first topic, which is, what is a millennial leader and how are they different? Like, what would you describe yourself as?
Yeah. So for me, I think that like the obvious definition is it's a generational difference, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I feel like not only in myself, but in those that I work around that are close to my age and even those that are younger, a lot of the big differences is I think that we tend to have this desire to feel more connected and more grounded to the work that we're doing. I currently work for a nonprofit organization, and it's something that really kind of drives me at the end of the day is knowing that the work that I'm doing, the work that my team is doing, it is really, truly, hopefully improving people's lives in some measurable way. And just that simple fact alone, I think, is really fulfilling. I think a lot of millennials in general are looking for more than just a job where they kind of punch in and punch out. Like I definitely think that kind of style of working is likely something that we will kind of it's going to start to feel almost antiquated in a way. And I think that a generation or two down the road will look back and I could see my daughter's kids asking what a punch clock is in the same way that kids nowadays would ask what a rotary phone is.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how you're talking about like purpose and really having that connection. And so with a millennial leader is getting that and providing that connection for the people they lead, because that is, we know, let me say it like differently, is we know that people don't leave companies, they leave bosses. And so that connection and that relationship that you have with the people, I'm sure that's pretty powerful for you.
Yeah, it's hard for me to separate those two things, and I think it's because so much of who I am, like
I know you're so likable, Brian.
Well, I was gonna say, I just like whether whether they like it or not, whether they want it or not, the fact of the matter is I'm just a person who thrives off of connection. And so for me to kind of decouple that is really difficult, because it's just such a core part of who I am and my personality. I do think that it is a strength though as well, because I really can pause and take myself out of the equation. And when I'm hearing, difficulties that someone is having, or roadblocks, or maybe it's just, they're going through something in their personal lives, like I can separate the work from that and meet them where they are as a person. And I realize that some of that is a skill set that I've worked on and developed over time. But I do think that part of that is just my genuine desire to create real connection with those people around me.
Yeah. And I'm listening to Brian, to what you're saying, and I'm thinking, I don't know, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had this kind of conversation.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
and
I think that previous generations would be like, well, why would I bring that to work? Why would I?
exactly.
And I think that there's kind of this tacit acknowledgement, I think, with my generation and with those that are younger than me, that like we have a desire to bring our whole selves to the workplace, right? And our whole selves encompasses not just what we're working on today, or what's sprint loaded, or whatever the case may be. Our whole selves is I may have a spouse at home, I may have children, I may have a dog that's not feeling well, or that I have to possibly contemplate putting down. Like, all of these things are real things that happen in people's real lives, that affect them in real ways. And we need to acknowledge that, like, if we want people to be our best, they need to be able to show up to work as their authentic selves.
Yeah.
And that authentic self also includes the ability to express opinion and not be afraid to do so, right?
Absolutely. I think it's super important, for us as leaders, especially, to be open to critical feedback, right? And sometimes there is a bit of defensiveness or a sting that kind of comes with that. But the important thing is that we have to take a step back. We have to allow ourselves to process what it is that we're hearing, and take out of it the important feedback that we need to hear.
Okay, I'm going to go there because you totally opened up the door about Snowflake. Okay? Because what you just said, that doesn't sound like a snowflake, Brian.
In a lot of ways,
I had to say it.
yeah. I think that this generation, we've taken a lot of criticism and a lot of critique as snowflakes. But you know, even in conversations with both of my parents, even they acknowledge, as boomers, that like our generation, it's harder to make it in today's world than it was for them. I mean, you look at the cost of college tuition, the cost of living, the overall rise in wages. Like, it's hard to make it nowadays. And the fact of the matter is so many millennials are out here, and we're just putting one foot in front of the other. And I think there is an open acknowledgement that it is difficult. We live in difficult times. We live in, we've lived through 9/11. We've lived through a huge recession in 2008. We're now living through a global pandemic. It's hard to say that we aren't resilient, if nothing else, right? Um, but I don't know. Just like any hard thing in life, like, you just kind of put one foot in front of the other, even if you can't see in front of you, and you just keep moving forward.
And I think this is the conversation. So apart from the fact, what I see is, apart from the fact that the millennial generation just brought the conversation of what we call work-life balance, but it's actually the balance between work life and home life, because it's just our life. It's one
Yeah.
life that we're living. It's not life and work. Hey, Alex, good to see you there. Yes, resilience is your thing. So you brought the conversation in the boardroom, which is absolutely amazing. And another thing is how you thrive on positive reinforcement, and how you turn things around, and you think about what is it that we can do in this situation right now to make it work? And I think it is the fact that you went through, most of the millennial generation graduated in the 2008, in the 9/11 events and the crisis that followed, and now you're going through a second crisis. And so resiliency absolutely is a thing, and it's something that you've learned to, it's a muscle that you've developed and that you're mastering. And I love what you said about feedback and being able to accept that kind of critical feedback, which is something that the X generation is it thrives on, because we were very critical. That's how we grew up. It just to criticize, look at what doesn't work and make it work, and you're looking at what works, let's make it work better. So I think we're moving in the right direction with the Gen Zs coming and thinking, I want to do meaningful work. I want to know what that purpose is. And I think that's where you align. So that was great to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, and ironically, like I think that in general, like there's a lot of why. There's a lot of questioning. There's a lot of appetite for pushing back against the idea of this is just how we've always done it. This is, you got to go along to get along, is a saying that I have
You
thrown
mean
out there.
challenge the status quo?
Yeah. But I mean, the reality is I think that our generation as a whole really has an appetite for kind of pushing back and really questioning, like, does this serve the greater purpose? I think that right now, especially as more boomers start to exit the workforce and we really start to see this full transition, is where I think we're going to see a lot of kind of those old way of doing things are going to change significantly. I think most business professionals, for example, acknowledge that post-pandemic, like, the idea of requiring people to be in office is going to be incredibly rare. And in the industries where people don't need to be in the office, if employers choose to require them to be there, I think that they will do so at their own risk.
Yeah, and I just to kind of throw some statistics out there is that we know 50% of the workforce today is millennials. And so it's just going to continue to rise. And with millennials, when we look at the age, the later age of that is they're in their 40s, which means they are running their own businesses today. They are in leadership positions like yourself and all different various variety of different levels. And they have a large percentage of them that are entrepreneurs as well in that. So there's this natural tendency, and I love where you were going with, of if it doesn't make sense, we're going to push back and question. Well, look what's happening today. You have the great reclamation, the great, resignation, and there's always an attachment. And I would even say the reshuffle too, because I bet you there's some millennials in that one, is that they're basically saying is, I don't need to live here. I can live here. This is where I always wanted to live because now, I can get a job, or this system doesn't make sense to me. I'm pushing back on this system. So either you give me what I want or I'm going to walk. And guess what? We know that if I'm not walking immediately, I am making a plan to do so. I'm either looking for another job or saving my money right now.
Yeah, I think that in a lot of ways, like we live in a market right now where employees really have a lot of options out there. Like I think the Great Reshuffle is kind of this example of, like, there are a lot of great employment options that are starting to come about, right? And so I think that we live in a time where there are a lot of millennials who can be very opportunistic, and they can start to be picky and choosy, especially in my career as software developers, where we all know
technology.
Yeah, if you've got 5+ years as a software developer, like, the world's your oyster, right? And so that's where those senior developer positions, like you said, you can move to wherever you want, and if you're isn't interested in that, you're probably going to have a job offer with an employer who will in 2 weeks or
Yeah, because
less,
they're
right?
smart. I mean, they're poaching. They're looking for top talent, and that's one of the things. Now, as we kind of finish up on the millennials and wanting a leader, let's see what the two of you say about this. Okay, is there said in this business? This was a business.com article about what does modern leadership really mean, and they talk about what do millennials want. So you're going to agree or disagree? One working with millennials and one a millennial leader. How's that? Mission-based role assignment.
Yeah.
Acknowledgement of life outside of work. I think you've already said that. And you actually said these two things. Okay, check. Attention as an individual, not a group. And so that kind of ties into what you're talking about is I see you as a person and I can differentiate between work when we're having a conversation. I see you.
Yeah.
And here's the last one. Encouragement to work towards something greater than themselves.
I mean,
you kind of hit all four of these, isn't that? And I didn't even let you know this.
Check. That was. But you see, that's why we needed to invite a millennial leader actually on the show. Like, that's the whole point. Exactly. Thanks, Alex, for being here. Yeah. Thanks for being with us. Yeah, it's exactly what we see. But let me ask you this, because we were talking about tech talent. So I cannot let this go. I'm so sorry. But I'm reading about big tech companies out there who are doing the following. One is gonna definitely ask people to get back in the office 3 days a week. So that's a must. The other, I'm not gonna name names, but if you Google them, you'll know. They are actually reducing the salaries. They're cutting 25% of people's salaries based on where people live, because a lot of them chose to move somewhere else outside of the city, in the outskirts. So now they're gonna either get the pay cut, the 25%, or they're gonna commute for 1.5, 2 hours every day to get into the office, because this is the policy. So what are we doing about? And these are tech companies. These are knowledge workers, tech companies that say that they do that because it matters for their company culture. We know they're big on culture, and this is why they say they're doing things. They're not asking.
Oh, that's not a culture thing when it comes to the salary. Because if it's the people that I'm thinking about, and most of these tech companies that are probably thinking that way are in a very expensive market area. And so they had to pay top dollar to even keep those people in the area because they couldn't even afford to live there. So if this is what bothers me with this, and I'll let you, Brian, chime in on this. I kind of beat you to the punch, I think, is that they might have some validity in the fact is if you're moving out of, say, for example, the San Francisco area, and we were paying you so you can live in there and pay that $4,000 rent or whatever. Okay, if you're moving out and the cost of living is lower, then we can probably save money on the bottom line by adjusting accordingly to maybe the market medium. But here's the thing, that pay cut needs to be fair when they're rationalizing this. And I would say how you're effectively communicating this. But here's what bothers me. You're going to get other tech companies out there that only hear what they want to hear. Perception is projection. And they're going to cut and make that an excuse because they see someone very popular and big do it. But they had probably some really good rationale because it might have been they were paying that for them to be able to spend $4,000 or $5,000 in rent. Yeah, it is not applicable across the board for every tech company. And that's what bothers me because they're going to use that as an excuse.
Yeah.
To
they set a trend.
They're going to penny pinch that bottom line. Yeah. And it's not a one size fits all to that equation. And that's what I'm worried about. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I think that's a great example of kind of a one size fits all fits very few, right? Like if it's just a flat rule of like a 25% pay cut, like imagine the difference between someone moving from say San Francisco to, I don't know, like let's say they want to go somewhere nice and warm, so they move to Phoenix, right? But then you have another employee who moves to somewhere like Lincoln, Nebraska, because maybe they have family there, right? Imagine the pay discrepancy if it's just a flat 25% in terms of how much further the person who moves to Lincoln, Nebraska, how much further that money will go for, in theory, let's just say for the sake of argument that they produce approximately the same value. Well, one of them is making significantly more because of how much further their money goes in a different market,
Yeah.
for producing the same amount of value. I mean, that's a recipe for resentment and disaster, I think, in the long run.
Yeah, it's not fair. I would think the HR people would probably be all the way. I'd be like, wait a minute, how are you making that decision? But at the end of the day, you want to be paid fair across, like, there are market averages. And I would say that if we are starting to become more global or what might have you, we really need to rethink how we approach that. Now, I'm not an HR person. I am, there's a lot of people that have been talking about this. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in this subject, but I'm just looking from my eyes outside in, going, it doesn't make sense, right? The why? It's just like, well, wait a minute. Don't be too reactionary about this. You really need to think through, and maybe you need to experiment because you don't know what actually it can happen. Because what's happening today is the human element is being highly reactive to the bad decisions.
Well, and to put a cherry on top, I mean, and to really kind of summarize this is the difference between an equal approach and an equitable approach, right?
Yeah. Oh, I like
25,
that.
25%, that's an equal approach, but it's not equitable.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, when we talk about where we're going right now, what's really frustrating millennials today? Come on, just let's let it out. Alex, you can chime in chat. We'll share it too.
Yeah, please do. It's really hard to kind of put your finger on one thing, right? I think that at a very high level, I know there's one thing that frustrates me, not only for myself from previous employment experiences, but also for others that I've worked with and I've had report to me, which is I cannot for the life of me understand how employers get complacent with employing people where someone can jump ship for $20,000-$30,000 more a year than they're making here at let's just say home, right? And then once that person leaves, then they realize maybe the market rate is higher and they'll adjust the salary for an incoming new person. And it's just like it just blows my mind that like
they lost a lot of money losing that knowledge that just walked out the door.
Absolutely. And also, like, it just reinforces this idea in the workforce, especially for millennials and younger, that the best way to get a pay increase is to jump ship. Like,
I can't say I didn't have that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, if you think
that's
about
why
it,
it's old. It's obsolete, or it should be.
Oh, look, here's what Alex said. So Alex said lack of vulnerability. That's one of the
And
things
he
that
also
frustrates
said,
him.
he also said that happened to me. Yeah, no, but I guess but it's the same. It's a tactic. It's the same old tactic, and people don't realize how much it costs, not just in terms of money, but time and energy, and also what it costs
Morale.
the people who stay. Exactly. It costs a lot. It
has a direct
just
impact
insane
to
if you just add. Exactly.
performance.
Not to mention your clients. How much does it cost the results that you're giving to your clients? How much, if anyone makes a calculation, I'm sure they will figure it out very quickly. But nobody thinks about it. And
Well, and I
can
mean, we live in
totally
a
agree.
time where, like, because this is what it is, so many people have just figured out that this is the best way for me to get a pay increase, a significant pay increase, that it continues to
Yeah.
feed that cycle, right? And it's like, we live at a time where there are very few kind of major differentiators between employers. I know, Roxana, this isn't the same for you guys in Canada, but here in the US, like the fluctuation in our healthcare benefits, obviously that's one obvious one, right?
Yeah.
But it just seems like nowadays it's expensive no matter where you
Or
go.
what about vacation time? Because
Yeah,
my dad was in
PTO.
HR, and he always said that all those benefits, that's actually how they equate your salary. And so he always said, use them all. And
Yeah.
the big thing is what people will look at is your time off and your medical. And I can't believe some of these organizations, they still only give you 10 days. Are you
Yeah.
freaking kidding me?
And that may or may not include sick time, right? Like if it doesn't, then you better hope that you just like either don't get sick or you die real fast, because like
Oh
I mean,
gosh.
10 days is like, I don't understand how an employer could expect their employees to unplug in a way that allows them to truly come back to work refreshed.
Or just even the archaic thinking of sick time versus vacation time. Like, I
Yeah.
remember when my dad was in HR, he was actually a proponent of the PTO concept. Like, this is before it was like a normal thing. Because he was like, you know, that most people will just use their sick time and just say, and that actually causes a ripple effect because it's unpredictability. They're calling in that day so they can use that day. And I had that mentality. You know what I used to call it? My brain, my body it was sick and it needed to rest. So I would call in sick. I utilized that as a vacation day. I'm
What
like, it's
why
a paid
shouldn't
benefit.
why shouldn't mental health qualify as a sick day? That's my
Exactly. Well,
question
I would have
though.
argued it
Yeah.
because I would have went to probably Shrink and Prove the Fact. I'm kind of one of those people. I'm like, well, you okay? You challenge me, we'll go there.
Yeah, like as far as I'm concerned,
I use sick days for my dog. Don't mess with me.
yeah.
I did, seriously. I proved it. I was like, okay, because I was like, that's a family member to me. So you're saying that because I think of that person as my family and I'm responsible, I'm a single doggy mom that I can't take care of my dog and use my sick time to take care of my family. And the HR person goes, technically, there isn't anything that says no. And I said, okay, I'm using it then.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
But then,
Is that a game changer
look,
strategist or what?
I think so, yeah. But look at, because Alex says diversity, equity, and inclusion are also big time in the spotlight for a lot of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But how hypocritical are we talking about? Yeah, we bring up the discussion about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and yet we're not changing the things that need to be changed so that people really feel included and valued. And as you said, Brian, equitable, they get equitable treatment, not equal treatment, because that's
Right.
not equitable.
And
Yeah.
it has to vary because kind of like what I was saying, I felt a lot of times, a lot of the benefits or the decisions they made was for the traditional family. And I was single. So I felt alienated all the time with all
Yeah.
the policies and things they made because I didn't have children and I wasn't married. And I was like, so what are you trying to say? That I don't get these kind of luxuries because I'm single?
You get
And
punished.
I used to feel that all the time,
Yeah.
you know? And that's why I fought the doggy thing because it made me mad.
I knew people who served in the military who literally picked up smoking because they were given smoke breaks in the military.
That's
That
my point.
it like you put a system in place that reinforces certain things, and like it's going to have unintended consequences. Like that is one of the most challenging parts of my job, is constantly trying to anticipate like what are the unintended consequences, right? Because we're seeing in very real terms how people figure out what the new rules of the game are, and they adjust accordingly.
So here's our last question. Is what do millennials really care about when it comes to their work careers and choice of company? So this is really now is say, hello, companies that are searching for new talent and retaining it. What are the key things that you probably should be considering?
Well, I mean, this one's hard.
I
It's
know it's
hard to kind
loaded.
of, it is because like different people really value different things differently. I've had people that report to me that like their number one, their North Star is like push me, challenge me. Like if I've been on, a series of projects or something and I don't feel like I've really been pushed for 6 months or more,
They
like
get bored.
I'm looking. I'm looking, right? Like there are other people who value PTO, right? Like time away, time off, in any way, shape, or form, like that opportunity to disconnect, especially in technology. I think all of us spend so much time on our computers and our day-to-day work that being able to get away, get up into the mountains, those sorts of things is very valuable to a lot of different workers. And so it's pretty hard to give one size fits all types of answers. But I
So is it
definitely,
more of using design thinking and really understand what people need and be adapted to it instead of being fixed?
yeah, I think that this kind of all comes back to understanding
How
your
agile.
people. Like, know who your people are, know what drives them, know
Mhm.
what makes them happy. Look for people who their kind of core values really overlap with your company's core values. I think that those are the best and the strongest fits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
core values are huge because if you have a conflict, right? And what amazes me in a lot of organizations that I go to is some of their values are tucked away in a website or in a document, and I will bring them up because that's one of the things I have to do in agile because I'm trying to connect the agile values, or the thinking with the company values and see if there's a conflict, because if there's a conflict, that might be a problem, right? Or if there isn't, I can show how you connect and there's a relation there. Well, when they don't even mean anything, then it's a kind of pointless conversation, and I kind of know that's where it's going to end. But I think it's very interesting that when leaders don't even use that as a process of how they hire. Now, there are companies out there that do that today. And like if you hired someone, you have company values and you have your values as a leader, right? I'm sure you probably care not to hire someone that has a conflict with those, because you already know right then and there, conflict of values gets you nowhere. Has nothing to do with personality.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
absolutely.
how many people know how to do that? And again, when we talk about values and how do we align to values, there are actually very few organizations that do that, instead
Yeah.
of just imposing, oh, here are the values, they're on the wall, take them or leave them. I don't care. Like, I don't care enough to ask you about your values and try to see where we align. And that's the thing. And that's why I think when we talk about the millennial generation and when we talk about the need for flexibility, that also comes with the need of being listened to, and ask me some questions and listen to me and help me understand that my voice matters as well as your voice. It's this kind of, it's the network environment. It's not just top down, but it's, and we talked about this before, the spider web of how we work together and how we connect together. That's the thing. And
That's
if
adaptive
you're not,
systems.
exactly. And if you're not asking, if you're not getting information from me and I'm not getting information from you, and we do something with it together, then it's not going to work, because at some point it's going to break. And I love what Alex says here with, from his experience, culture forms of communication from top down and vice versa. Flexibility and integration of work, home, life, I would say. And feeling cared for. I think this is, and especially right now, because we're in another transition. And in a transition, the emotional toll is so high. And that's why people need to be heard. And feel that they're understood and valued. And that's when you can actually sit at the table together and have a more rational conversation and make strategic plans after we've made sure that, well, I'm asking you, how are you? What do you want? What's your work style? What do you prefer? What do you see? How are you productive? How
Yeah.
do
But you
you
also
think we're
have
going to move
to
forward?
you have to create a system that supports the adaptability, because based
Yeah.
on like what both of you are saying is it depends. So it's the what if of you are running a business, you have to have some kind of guardrails, right? It's even like in parenting, right? Once kids grows up, you have so much, you have about enough guardrails, but then they have to feel that autonomy and independence. And so if you're thinking about an organization, what's the minimum that you need to put in order to function as a big gigantic ecosystem of systems that allows someone like you, Brian, to make your own rules within your teams that is highly adaptive to suit there, because you are the closest to them, not somebody that is far removed in a system from a system from a system doing surveys. I think that's crazy. So it's we have to get to a point to create a system that actually supports adaptability to its essence, and that gives you autonomy to say, my team, we're going to work this way. Because at the end of the day, if you're able to provide results, you're high performing, what does it matter? What does it matter if you are driving the results that makes the business thrive? It's irrelevant to me, right? I mean, it's my philosophy of when I came from teaching and into corporations, this whole 9 to 5 thing, it baffled me. I thought it was stupid. Let me just say it that way. Because I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm getting penalized because I'm smart enough to get my job done in a specific time. And I have to sit here to make you feel comfortable that you can see me. I was like, it makes no sense. So I'm being penalized. So then, okay, I might as well not try to do things quickly. Or I found something else to do, and I would have all these little hobbies, and I knew I had 2 hours within the day because I was smart enough to finish the other stuff. But truly I wanted to leave, but I had no choice.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that my employer is doing right now, and um, regardless of how it shakes out, I just have so much respect for them, kind of asking why not. Is we're in the middle of a 4-day work week kind of pilot program, and
That's
they're just kind of
awesome.
seeing how it goes. And
Yay!
in a lot of ways, it's something that for years, based on the data and the studies that I've read, I've always wondered, like, why not? Why wouldn't you try that, right? Like,
Yeah, what's the worst thing that can happen? You know what most of them fears, because they might have to stick to it, right? But
yeah.
how many of you out there that just heard 4-day work week, would you love to experiment that at your company? Comment and let us know, because I would love to know.
And
Yeah,
I
or
will
the
say, like,
6 hour day,
yeah,
the 6 hour work day.
Oh, you
it,
mean like me, the one that always just had a little hobby to do to entertain my time? Because I got it done. I got my work done.
and I will say, we're far enough into the experiment to where I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on what the trade-offs are, right? Like, our 4 days are like, uh, it feels like 100 miles an hour most days, right? Like, they're heavily packed days. We're our team, we've moved meetings around, we've set like kind of general guidelines in order to help make sure that we have focus time throughout long stretches of the day. um, and it's a fast week in terms of how much we pack in. However, even with that higher cognitive load in 4 days, I've yet to speak to anyone on my team who says anything other than it's amazing what an extra day does in terms of like
For
my
sure.
well-being. Rolling into work on Monday morning, people have expressed to me that they're looking forward to coding again. People have expressed to me that, having Friday off and being able to drive up to the mountains and drive back Sunday, like, they feel more refreshed, they feel more ready to go. Like, it's just overall so far right now, even though we do really hit the ground running Monday through Thursday, like, overall, my team just continues to echo to me like how much better they feel overall.
Have you been doing this long enough to actually see the fruits of the results of this experiment yet?
So it's hard to say right now. I think that as we finish out the remainder of the year, we're going to have a little more time with it to really kind of start to say we have one 90-day project that the contract was just signed last week, and so that's going to be, in my opinion, kind of one of the real
validating this theory.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to. We gotta find out because I think a lot of people, theory's one thing, but putting it to practice is another. And if you can show that you can prove that it works, we definitely want you to share that, because people need to hear that and see that it actually can work. And here's how it works.
And I'm interested to see the result, because we're talking about the US, because in Europe, in some of the countries in Europe, they've been doing that for a while. They either have 4 days a week or 6 hours a day or all sorts of arrangements, and it works, but it's a different kind of environment. So it's a different kind of competitiveness. So it would be interesting to see the result for the US, because that's a great model to follow.
Yeah, I think so long as the outputs are consistent, right? As long as we're really kind of hitting our marks, I just don't see why we wouldn't do this when we know that it also helps people feel better. Like it gives them more. And it's kind of ironic. I said to my wife the other day, when we talk about work-life balance, what's more in balance, working 5 days and having 2 off, or 4 and 3?
Yeah. So, that's an interesting
makes
question.
sense if you think about it this way,
right?
Definitely. Speaking of results and getting the best out of people, are we ready to talk about your results on the GC Index profile?
Sure.
So just a quick snapshot of understanding what the GC Index is. It's an outcome-based people business tool that allows you to actually measure the potential impact in individuals, teams, and organizations on how best they want to contribute to the outcomes. And so everyone that always comes on the show, we do it for fun. And I know, like, I feel like what was Wilson from the TV show? Anyways, that we always have them do this because it's fun. One is, why not? We offer it with our guests to see. So you can see Roxana and I are to the left. We actually have the same profile. We're due to probably get our GC Index to see how we've grown and changed over the last 2 years. I mean, I've been doing this for 2 years, so who knows what? I mean, I've gotten coaching and everything. I'm sure something's changed in me. But Brian,
yes.
How was the experience? Because Roxana did this with you.
She did, and in some aspects it made a lot of sense, right? Like the strategist, the playmaker, those were not surprising to me. However, what was surprising to me was how balanced overall everything was. I didn't really expect that, and so I think that part of that is like, I don't know if it's just my career and how like I've had to kind of play different roles in different teams and different organizations. Like maybe that has kind of flexed some of those other skills a little bit more, because I played a variety of different roles in different organizations. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I was telling Roxana, the strategist in so many ways makes so much sense. Even more so outside of the work environment. I'm definitely the one who, always tells my wife we got to sleep on it before we make any decisions. I am the one to kind of think through all of the what ifs, and so.
Are you a planner too?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have that side of me that, like, for example, when we go on vacation, I love not having a plan on vacation. Like,
but you plan not to plan.
That's true.
Yes.
It's not a surprise that you don't have a plan,
because you've already thought through it.
That's right. But I mean, V, you know me, like the playmaker also makes 100% sense as well,
Yeah.
because like I just team camaraderie, like really building those strong shared connections across an organization, like I mean, that's just kind of what makes me tick. It's what fills my cup. It's what helps me feel fulfilled at the end of the day. Like people and relationships are just, that is it for me.
And you care about them understanding why and having clarity. And you actually said that earlier about understanding their needs and why and how they connect to the purpose. And so it doesn't surprise me that having purpose and how the people come along with your strategist playmaker in you. But you got that game changer too, because
I
those
know.
are, I mean, you pretty much are, yeah, well-rounded. But then that game changer also is what probably makes you challenge if things don't make sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are definitely times where I think I kind of have a tendency to float between the two, right? Where some things in my mind, if I have it figured out and I can see how it makes sense, then I definitely can kind of be more of the like, let's just keep going. We know this works. It's tried and true. But there are definitely times too where I'm just like, man, why are we still doing this? Like why are we the whole 9 to 5 punch in, punch out, like a couple of weeks ago, Roxana, you were talking about that poor woman who requested to be able to take a contiguous hour
Yeah.
for her lunch, and the answer was no. And it's just like, that is mind blowing to me, that like you can't even take one moment to question enough, like whether or not this really makes sense, like
I know that
things like
the
that. It's
fact
just,
that we're talking about those things today drives me crazy. It's like, really, haven't we moved on?
Exactly.
yeah,
That's like
I
the
just,
rotary phone. Like, seriously, move on.
Yeah.
like, other than the fact that this is just the way that we've always done it being the answer, I don't understand any compelling reason why you wouldn't say, yeah, like, if you're going to take 2 30-minute breaks, if you want to take 1 hour break, go for it.
And that's great, because what I find is a strategist would ask why. They always ask the why, and they're very big on the why. And a game changer comes in and asks, why not?
I
Yeah.
know.
It's like that dynamic between the game changer and the strategist. I
And then your
guess
sense it, I bet you, are you the one in the family that is always getting a pulse about everyone else? And just do sometimes you put yourself in the back seat and forget about you?
I normally I would say yes, but my wife is just like, she's just every bit of my better half. And so, like, I mean, she constantly teaches me how to be more selfless, how to um y- I don't know. She's incredible. And so, as much as I would like to say that I am the one, like, she's just that much further down the road than me in terms of like even her own levels of empathy and willingness to put everything on the back burner for the better half, or for the betterment of others.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And it was so playmaker of you to think of others while you actually answered that.
yeah, see the best in others. Exactly.
Yeah.
You
The
totally went
talent.
there.
Totally, exactly. And I loved it when we were talking about it before the show a little bit, and what this can do when you tap into the best impact that everybody can make on a team, and how you can bring everybody's best energy. Talk about bringing their best self at work. It has a lot to do, if not everything to do, with the energy they put into the work, with the natural
Yeah.
energy that they put into it, and how that motivates them and engages them rather than make them feel depleted. So
Yeah,
this is powerful.
and a lot of times I have spoken to several people that their dominant energies were not shining in what they were doing.
Yeah.
And me, coming in engagements and being an agile coach, I could see it, I can pinpoint it,
Yeah.
that there was something that we weren't getting out of that person. And then I go and I have this run their profile, and I'm like, And this particular scenario was a Scrum Master, and they gave her to be a Scrum Master. I think they piled on 4 teams. I kid you not. And they're doing the scaled agile framework. So she had to do these PI plannings, a lot of coordination. So it's like, Scrum Master on steroids to have 4 teams. Now, she was just like you, but a little bit opposite. She was a playmaker strategist. And so her playmaker, you can imagine having 4 teams, she really couldn't build the strong relationships and get really deep with a team because she was superficially organizing them. And she was really good. Her strategist was actually at play organizing and planning, but her playmaker was not shining, and she was miserable. And so right before her and I met, she got the guts because I had a training class that was talking about anti-patterns. And so she used that information. I went to class today, and she was able to negotiate getting down to 2 teams. And oh my God, she was so happy.
And like, it's funny because I mean, in theory, like I wasn't at the organization, but like in theory, like those are reasonable accommodations that an employer could make. Um, uh, why wouldn't you want people to be happier at work? Happier people are going to be more productive. Happier people are going to produce more value. And almost always their work is going to be of higher quality. Like it just like. I just don't understand why you wouldn't be, making those reasonable accommodations in order to kind of get people into their sweet spot.
Yeah, and it's kind of a win-win. If you're running a business, you want to have good outcomes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a no-brainer in my head is that you align people to an outcome that you're trying to achieve, how they best can contribute. One is they're probably happier because they're doing things that are probably where they want to put their energy and lights them up, right? Like a Christmas candle or birthday candle. I think I said that totally wrong, but I was thinking of Christmas lights. I don't know why.
Almost there, B.
I know. Well, I bought Halloween lights. I'm going to decorate. I think couple days. They came in. I ordered them. They're gonna be really cute.
But as leaders, I really truly believe that if we want to take good care of our business, the primary way that we do that is by taking good care of our people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I that's the simplest I can distill it down. Take good care of your people and they will take good care of your business. Like,
yeah. And the stats are there. I mean, there's the latest stat is that 65% of startups failed not because of technology and process issues, but because of people issues.
Oh yeah.
So people issues are business issues. So people's success is going to be business success. And if you're going to have those processes in place, they have to serve the people so that they actually serve the business, not your people serving the processes just because the processes work. And it's always been like that.
And this isn't the fluffiness. This is about making the invisible visible in relation to helping you meet your business objectives. It's not about I'm a purple, I'm a red, I'm this or that. No, you actually can make good, solid people decisions that are related to like the project you have, right? And say, okay, this makes sense. We know our blind spots, we know our gaps, and we can actually do something about it. So it's not fluffy. But in the turn, all 3 of us are all about the human aspect. And so it allows us to approach it at both angles at the same time, right? Because if you're a business, you still need to run effectively, right? Now, speaking of running effectively in businesses, tomorrow we have a special event as we start to wrap up today's session. I know that we took it long. Oh my God, it's so much fun talking to you, Brian.
I told you we're not going to have enough time anyway.
I know.
There's no way.
We're going to have a recap after and see what happens with the 4-day, because I know a lot of people would love to hear about that.
Yes.
All right, so 2022, I'll come back.
So tomorrow, we're going to have a special guest, Larry LaSalle from Scale OKRs, talking about annual planning with OKRs and 3 tips you don't want to miss. So this is Also, the things that you can do to move more into outcomes, create high performance cultures. In turn, it allows people to connect to things and have purpose if they actually knew what they were doing and why, right? That's why I like OKRs. That's why I got into it. But anyhow, so we're going to wrap up today. And thank you so much, Brian, for coming and joining us. It was...
Thank you for inviting me.
I know. And now look at it. You're a live streamer. You're not a newbie anymore. Look
I know.
at it. You've mastered it.
Welcome on board.
You're a pro. See, it's not bad, right? We just kind of be.
No, I love this stuff though. Like, it's super fun to just sit down and have a chat.
Yeah, so that's what I love about these fireside chats and chat formats and these fancy webinars where you plan and it's kind of like, this is more real and it's more connecting. So hope all of you that are watching us enjoyed today. Let us know, give us some feedback or advice on, how to make this a more enjoyable on the Game Changer, also known as the GCW show. I'm getting all fancy. All right. So enjoy the rest of your evening, day, or whatever time it is in your world. And join us tomorrow for our special event on planning and OKRs. All right. We will see all of you later. And farewell.
Bye.
Bye.